Then, hi Jim, how are you doing? Everything fine on your end?
Everything's good, Robin. Thanks for having me back. It's an honor to be here and support your podcast. I think you're doing fine work, and anything that I can do to help you out, you know who to call.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Before we get started, maybe for the few people that haven't watched the first episode of that we have done, give the people some overview of like who you are, how you found Bitcoin, and especially why you are so excited about Bitcoin.
Right. Um, there's in my life, I've only had a handful of things that have really been able to redirect my life and change my life in a substantial way. And Bitcoin has certainly been up there. And financially, it's probably the number one thing that has changed my life. But it's had so many positive aspects. And what happened was, I had watched a documentary with the late Morgan Spurlock. He's the guy who made the Super Size Me video years ago about McDonald's, and he had done a documentary about Bitcoin. And at the time, it was like $660 a coin, and it didn't really grab me. I mean, his supersized video was great for me, but his documentary on Bitcoin for some reason didn't grab me. So I kind of put it on the back burner to look into it. And Margaret, my better half, she asked me to go buy her a pair of sunglasses. So I went to overstock.com to check out and get her a pair of sunglasses, and I seen they accepted Bitcoin, and that struck me right away. And I thought, oh, that's what I watched that documentary about. So I went back real quick and Googled it and found the price, it was up to $2,400. And I thought, my gosh, what is this? I've never seen anything move so quickly. And that was only about 6 months later that I went to buy those sunglasses. So I said, you know what? I'm an idiot for not digging into this. Let me just go ahead and buy one of these Bitcoin things, and I'll put my toe in the water, get some skin in the game. And it was only $2,400, but still, I didn't want to lose $2,400. I'm retired, and you don't want to throw money away. So I just said, okay, it's not going to make or break me to throw $2,400 at this thing. And then it gives me maybe a new hobby, something to learn about. And that happened to be one of the best decisions of my life. So I bought one, immediately started learning about it, and I've never stopped. It's been over 8 years now, Robin, and I'm still learning. As you know, being in this space, you never stop learning, and it's given me an incredible education and a new outlook on life that I never thought I would get. Being in my 60s, I never thought I would discover something like this. So it's been life changing to me. And it continues to be life changing to me. I continue to learn. I continue to evangelize it here. I live out in California, although right now I'm in Warsaw, Poland, and I'm even evangelizing it here. I've already had my first meeting with one of Margaret's relatives, and he was fortunate enough to listen to me years ago about this, and so I had another meeting with him, and he did end up buying some, and he's happy he did. So I evangelize anywhere I go. It doesn't matter what city or state. Most of it's done in the desert area of California, in the Palm Springs area, and I've met a lot of good people out there. It's been a very positive thing. It's enriched my life with new friends. It's given me something to look forward to. It's given me some hope for the future of humanity. And if you're sitting on the sidelines, don't sit there much longer. It's a good time to get into Bitcoin today. People say, "Oh, I wish I would have been you and got in 8 years ago." Well, Robin, I've been through a couple cycles, and it's although I've learned a lot, it's been a bumpy road, and I think now is as good a time as any, if not even better, to get into Bitcoin. It's still going to work for you. It's still going to give you a compound annual growth rate. So if you're sitting on the sidelines, think twice.
Yeah, the risk reward profile might never have been better than right now, because not like the thing that we don't talk about when we think about, oh, I wish I would have bought 8 years ago or 10 years ago. The question marks around Bitcoin were totally different 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where we now figured out a lot of the things that we honestly figured out now, and we hadn't had figured out them. Like just as a small example, the block size war was a big one where we kind of proved how resilient the network is. We now kind of we lived through the Bitcoin mining exit of China in 2021, and many are like the richest person alive with Elon Musk kind of half attacking it with like embracing it and then dunking on it, and the market absorbed it. So like all those small examples where Bitcoin really showed how strong it is, and because of that, all the question marks are now smaller, and like there's not a lot of question marks left to prove for Bitcoin. But we're still so early in the price development and in the adoption and development. So you could make an argument that the risk reward, honestly, hasn't never been really better than right now, like 2025, around that era. Maybe like a year ago it was even better because not that many questions were answered in the last 1 year and the price was better. But like the risk reward is like massively attractive for me, even if you come in Bitcoin in 2025.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Robin. I can only go by my personal experience in Bitcoin, and I look back and just do the math all the time. So I'd like to talk a little about the compound annual growth rate of Bitcoin, if that's okay with you, and my experience with it. And it's sometimes when I do the math, and it's not my math. I'm not sitting there with a piece of paper or a calculator or anything. I'm obviously using AI to do the math because some of these math questions are rather complicated, and I would trust AI over my math any day. So I sit there and I punch in numbers, and any way I punch these numbers in, it's just mind bending to me. I just sometimes I have to do it twice and just look it over because I think that just can't be right. But it is. And so I'll share with your audience, my experience with, for instance, my first Bitcoin that I bought, and that was June 2nd, 2017. I ended up buying one Bitcoin, and it was $2,400 at the time. Like I said, I just wanted to put my toe in the water to see what this thing was. And so I kind of, even just using that one Bitcoin and extrapolating that out, because that's my beginning point. You have to put in your time in Bitcoin, but it seems to work over and over and over again, even for myself. So starting with the $2,400 and looking at what it's been averaging over the 8-year return, it it's been averaging a 65% compound annual growth rate, which is it's just it's hard to believe. I mean, if you told somebody that, they would say, "Oh, it's some kind of a, scam or a scheme or something. Nothing can return that kind of return." But it has. So I started really doing the math on this just to extrapolate this out and see if I just stick with that first coin and I extrapolate it out for another 13.11 years. Now, keep that in mind. This is how crazy these numbers get. If you, it's hard to believe. So basically, for 21.24 years, if you start with $2,400, and anybody can do the math on this at home, and you extrapolate that out for 21 years at a 65% compound annual growth rate, Robin, believe it or not, you hit parity in Bitcoin. You hit $1 for one Satoshi. That's 100 million, and you heard that right, dollars per Bitcoin at a 65% CAGR for 21.24 years. Now, I'm not saying it's going there, but it's done it for 8 years. So I started thinking, okay, I wouldn't believe that it's going to average a 65% compound annual growth rate going forward, forever, and certainly maybe not even for the next 10 years. So what would be something more in lines with what I'm researching and what seems to be the consensus out there? So I dropped it way down, Robin. So imagine this. So for the first 8 years, I put in the AI, compound this at 65% for the first 8 years at $2,400 at my entry price for my first coin. So again, that came up to a number, and I said, okay, now for the next 13.11 years, let's drop that CAGR down to 20%. 20%. And that still puts that coin over $20 million it's insanity. And let's say it doesn't even hit a 20% compound annual growth rate going forward, which I think that's realistic. I think a 20% CAGR for the next decade or so is realistic. But even if you drop that down, it's still life-changing money. Even if you drop it down to 10% compound annual growth rate, 5% compound annual growth rate, it still turns out to be millions of dollars over the next decade. I do think that's going to happen. I'm not so certain that the parity, the dollar per sat's going to happen over the next 13 years. I wouldn't rule it out happening in the long run, extrapolating it out far enough into the future. But I even did some of that just for fun to see where we're at with percentages as well. I not only used compound annual growth rate, but I started using percentages. And as crazy as it is, if we go back to 2009, Bitcoin started out roughly, we'll just say at a penny, but it actually started out at 8/10 of a cent, I believe, was the first Bitcoins that were mined. But we'll just start it out at a penny, and we'll take that to $100,000 Bitcoin. Now I know it's over that today, but I just stopped at $100,000 for simplicity. Do you know that's a billion% increase, Robin? A billion% increase from 1 penny to $100,000 is a billion%. So I said, that's insane. So I thought, okay, so what's the next stop for Bitcoin? Everybody's talking about $1 million Bitcoin. And there's a lot of people saying, yeah, no, it's never going to hit $1 million, just like they said it was never going to hit 10,000, 100,000, 50,000, and so on. And I did the percentage for Bitcoin where it is today to get to $1 million, Robin, it's only 734 more percent. Now, if it's gone up 1 billion% in 16 years, to go up another 734% is nothing more than a hiccup. It's nothing more than a rounding error in the whole math. And I said, wow, that's crazy. So what would it take on a percentage basis to get to that $100 million Bitcoin? 84,000 more percent. So if Bitcoin moves up 84,000 more percent, it'll be roughly $100 million a coin, which sounds crazy. But again, when you look at a billion% increase and it's only got to go up 84,000 more percent to get to $100 million, that's something I wouldn't bet against either. It's just, I don't know if it's going to get there in my lifetime. I do think that's a real possibility in the future to get to those kind of numbers, because at the end of the day, they're not going to stop printing money. So as long as they have that money printer on, which it seems like it's on permanently, that Bitcoin's just going to continue to revalue the rest of the world. So again, I thought you'd find some of those numbers quite intriguing, because I have to do them sometimes more than once to believe my own eyes.
It's so interesting because every time I think about what's the full potential of Bitcoin, like where are we going in 10 years, 50 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, or like better ask, like where are we going if like Bitcoin is actually successful? And I truly think Bitcoin will be the world reserve asset and maybe currency. And I have a very simple calculation, and it might be a little bit too simple. And I just took the world population and I put it at 10 million, 10 billion people, not like 8 point whatever it is, just because I think the population will grow a little bit. And I took 15 million coins and not the 21 million, because I do think coins will be lost. There might be this thing where we might break up old wallets and then it's like 21 million again, but let's keep it simple with just like 15 million, but the numbers are not that different. So if we have that, we have what is it, 0.0015 Bitcoin per person. And I looked up what the average wealth currently is, and the average wealth point is around like 90K. So like if you just take like what a person is person's wealth is and put the average on there, you have like 100K roughly. Obviously that's not the median, that's the average. So like it's a little bit screwed to the upsides because of like really rich people, but that's the average wealth. And this would put, if you put then 0.0015 Bitcoin at 100K, that would put Bitcoin at $67 million per coin, which is still under the 100 million, still under the dollar parity. But that's right now my best guess, if someone asks me, oh, like what's kind of the potential, because like investors always want to know. I come from the investing world, I come from like the stock world, and people always want to know what's the TAM, like what's the total addressable market for Bitcoin. If everyone works out perfectly, I personally think we could reach the $67 million in today's dollars terms. So with inflation, we will definitely hit the parity. Because, but then it's like not that interesting, because like what can you buy from that? I think you made that ice cream example in the last
Oh
episode with
yeah.
that.
Yeah, the I like to talk about inflation and the inflation that I've witnessed in my life, which is staggering. Matter of fact, I think finally we're seeing the signs even here. I haven't been to Europe in 2 years, and this time was a different trip. I usually come here, and the dollar is very powerful here, especially in Poland, because they're not using the euro; they use their own currency. And this time, I can clearly see that the inflation is here, and it's a different experience this time. It's certainly affecting the entire world. Fiat currency is a cancer out there, and it's just eating everybody's economic energy. And it's just sad. But we have an option now. We have a tool in our toolbox to opt out of inflation. And I'll share with you this. I like to kind of share my experience of what it's done for us. And I was fortunate enough. I was in the telecommunications business for 25 years, and I was able to sell out and retire and take an early retirement at 49. So I've had a lot of time to myself, and Bitcoin came along at a good time for me to get a hobby going, because I really needed to exercise my mind and get my thoughts going again. And it has taken over my life in a lot of ways, but for the better. And one thing that it's done for Margaret and I is it's made our life free, Robin. So people say, well, I say it's a deflationary technology. It's the most deflationary technology that I've ever seen in my life, probably on the planet. It makes things cheaper. Well, what it's done for us, and I'm going to go back to 2017 and start there. In 2017, we ended up purchasing, I won't say how many coins, but we ended up purchasing a number of Bitcoin. What it's done now after 8 years and a 65% compound annual growth rate, it's made everything free. So whatever we spend, we basically, in essence, get a refund, because our Bitcoin continues to outgrow what we're spending annually. Now, we're not selling the Bitcoin. Don't get me wrong there, but we're in essence getting a refund for everything that we're spending. I mean, I just, it's hard to believe. I mean, I would have never thought anything like this could have been possible, but thank you, Satoshi Nakamoto out there, whoever you are, or the people, whoever created Bitcoin. And it just seems to work. The other day I found an old cold storage wallet that I have, Robin, and I said, "Oh, I don't use this. I'm not using this. I bought it and I set it up, and I said, I think I put some Bitcoin in there." So, I went back and looked, and I opened it up, and I had put $100 worth of Bitcoin in that cold storage wallet. Um, I guess it was probably around 2.5 years ago. It's over $400 now. I mean, it just, every time I stack Satoshis, it just continues to never let me down. They just grow over time. The value of the, not the Satoshis grow, but you know what I mean. The valuation of those Satoshis versus the dollar continue to grow every single time. And we still stack Sats. I mean, I've been stacking for 8 years, and I'm not going to stop. I don't save dollars anymore. I spend dollars as fast as I get them, because they're guaranteed to lose value, and I put my economic energy in something that's guaranteed, in my opinion, guaranteed to gain value. And for 8 years, it's been doing just that. And so I'll continue to do this, hopefully for the rest of my life. But my goal every month is to have more Satoshis than I did the month before. And there's a lot of great ways for your listeners out there to stack Satoshis now that we didn't have at the beginning. And one of my favorite ways to do it is I use a Bitcoin back credit card, and I stack that way. I'm out here in Poland stacking Satoshis, spending, and I have more every day than I had the day before. So there's a lot of easy ways to do it. Dollar cost averaging is a good way. I also dollar cost average every week. Every Tuesday, I have more sats than I did the week before because that's my dollar cost average day, just a random day that I chose. It doesn't seem to make a difference what day you choose of the week or when you dollar cost average. At this point, looking back, Robin, you could have bought the peak of every cycle and still be up.
Thank you for watching this video. This was only a snippet of the podcast. And if you want to watch the full episode and get all of the context of this episode, you can click right here or here. Oh, maybe also here.